Welcome back, everybody, to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. We are your Omniverse Comics Guide guys. I'm Eric. That's my pal Jake the Snake. Dave, how's it going, Dave?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you, Erickson. What you been up to, my dude?
I've been reading a lot of Image comics lately.
Oh, what for?
Well, I thought since we do a comic book podcast, maybe one day we could talk about Image comics. Maybe do a top 10. I don't know.
That's
if
not
you'd
tonight,
be up for it. Are you up for doing it tonight? Impromptu? Could you do it off the top of your head?
Let me just get rid of these examples. I'll be right back. What? Hang on, what's that, Glenn? Glenn said he's gonna give me some examples, so we'll be fine.
Perfect. Thank you, Glenn.
He doesn't look anything like Fred Durst, Glenn. Right, carry on.
For everybody that's tuned in with us on Twitch, thank you for joining us, hanging out with us during this live. For everyone watching on YouTube, thank you for tuning in again on the YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. We're almost at 1,000. That's great. Right? That's getting very close. And anybody that's listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whichever platform you prefer, and you're not seeing Dave play with his snake right now, whichever platform you prefer, give us a thumbs up, a subscribe, and comment. Leave us a comment, good, bad, ugly. We appreciate the love. And of course, the snake distracted me. Dave,
Doesn't it always?
Of course, visit us at omniversecomics.guide, where you get all of our podcast archives, our collector item specials, our interviews, some great interviews we got there, as well as Dave's second to none, as I like to say, reading orders.
Oh.
If you want to find a comic book crossover that has been omnified or some series that you want to know where it begins and all the in-betweens, Omniverse Comics Guide is your place for it. Omniversecomics.guide. Let's get it right.
So I think you nailed it. It was all right. We'll forgive you. Just because of the amazingly kind words, you are
It's
forgiven,
true, man.
sir.
It's true. Do we have any mailbags today? Anything we got to do before we kick off the show?
No mailbags.
Okay.
We can get straight bang into it. Okay, so we are talking top 10 Image comics. There are some really obvious choices. There are probably some less obvious choices. I'm intrigued to know if you've picked up any of the superhero books. I'm going to say in advance, I haven't. But I am going to start us with a pretty obvious choice, because
Yes.
as much as you can say, like, really going to go with really obvious, well, how can you not? With
Yes.
some. And it's this obvious choice. It's The Walking Dead. So this is probably Image's biggest seller. Hang on, I'm going to try and... It's quite heavy. I'm going to try and show them off. I had a hernia there. There you go. It's 4 compendiums worth.
So that's the whole series.
That's the whole series. It ran from 2003 to 2019, 193 issues. It's a lot. I mean, most of the trade paperback, the compendiums are 48 issues a pop for the most part.
That's a good value.
It's really good value. It is a black and white series, but I've never heard anyone complain about it. You know, you get some people going, "Oh, I want to read that." You know, it's black and white. You don't even notice you're reading a black and white comic.
Can I be honest about something? Hot take. Mm-hmm. I've never read The Walking Dead.
You never read The Walking Dead?
Never read The Walking Dead at all. Zombies weren't my thing, so it wasn't even a matter of it wasn't for me, like it wasn't good or the right. Like I like Robert Kirkman quite a bit. There's a couple of things.
I'm well aware.
Right. And but Walking Dead, I never got around to. I might give it a shot. It's just a matter of which format do I want to make the investment in, because it does take up a lot of space.
It takes up a lot of space, and there are multiple different formats. You can get it in individual trade paperbacks of about 6 issues a go, but you can imagine how many trade paperbacks that's going to take. I read the first story arc quite a few years ago, when it first came out, Volume 1, and I didn't carry on. And a friend of mine, Pete Ware, I've mentioned, a friend of the show, Pete Ware, he said to me, you've got to stick with it. And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, I've got a compendium, take it home. So he brought it in for me from into work, and I didn't stop. Like, the compendium is probably the best way, because it lets you really get into it, and you have no excuse to stop. And this takes you all the way up to the governor storyline with the prison. I don't want to say too much about it, but they did a version of that storyline in the TV series. What was that, series 3 or something? I don't even know. I stopped watching it after series 2. And it's so much harsher than the TV series. And if you think you're familiar with what's going on, because I mean, there's no Daryl. He doesn't exist. And some of the characters that are together in the TV show aren't together in this, or they're with other people. So it's got its own thing. So watching the TV version won't spoil much, if anything.
Right. Okay.
There are a couple of spin-off books as well. There's Clementine, which is a trilogy that's from Tilly Walden, I think, but it's getting a lot of praise from some and a lot of the opposite from others, but I haven't actually tried it out yet. There's Here's Negan, which was a one-shot graphic novel as well, which obviously relates to that character, but I haven't read it because I haven't got to that point yet. Here's the one confession from tonight for me, is that I haven't finished The Walking Dead. I've only got halfway through, but it's so good, I can't imagine it not continuing that way.
Right.
I do need to pick it up again. And also there's another book called The Alien, The Walking Dead, The Alien, which is by Brian K. Vaughan. And I think he was the first person, and Marcos Martin, and they were the first creators outside of the main team to work on the series. So Brian K. Vaughan was the first writer who wasn't Robert Kirkman to work on this. It's so good. Like, it's just so good. I think when Charlie Adler comes along as artist, so Tony Moore does the initial arc, and he's like essentially the co-creator. But when Charlie Adler comes on, British artist, yay, go the Englands. Something just clicks when he's on the book. I think it's the simplicity of his art. It's like when I've talked about Kaiju Max before, about how cutesy it is, and it's almost disarmingly cute. When it's really visceral, you're not expecting it to be. It's total misdirection. Your head's in the wrong place. To a degree, I think some of that is true of The Walking Dead, because that art is so nice and so clean. I can't really compare him to anybody. It's not cartoony, but there's something simple about it, and it just works. But yeah.
Question for you, Dave, in regards to the compendium, because this is something that I was going to bring up in this conversation, but I got a problem with Skybound specifically not including their covers in their collections. Does this include covers?
No.
Yeah, that drives me crazy.
Yeah, I hate that.
And I don't know if they've been told, if they don't care. If anyone from Skybound happens to be listening to this, stop doing that. It sucks.
Stop doing it.
Because at the end of the day, we know when that issue ends, because we've read comics enough to kind of know, well, that would have been the end of the issue. And the way this page carries on, it would be the first page of the issue. We would really appreciate the covers.
Well, we're missing out on the artwork. We're missing out on that kind of breathing room of going, I'm just going to stop at this point tonight, because this is a nice, comfortable place to stop. Not partway through an issue, possibly. I don't really know.
Exactly. And it's not a matter of, well, if you want the cover, you should buy the single issue because you just want the story, and that's all. Like, no we enjoy the cover. Yeah, we enjoy the covers as well. We want it all.
Yeah.
We just don't want to have.
Why wouldn't we want it all?
200 single issues. Yeah. Right? We're gonna buy 4 compendiums. Thank you very much. Include the covers, Skybound.
It's a very. Are you all right? Do you want to step down from the soapbox? Are you all right? Do you need to breathe?
I'm going to get off my soapbox in a second.
Thing is, it's perfectly fair, and it does annoy me. I'll be honest, I didn't notice it on this because I was just ploughing through it.
Right.
But I like to know where the chapters break, and I would like to know where to put my bookmark if I don't want to stay up to read another 4 issues worth. Great series, great characters. There comes a point where the zombies are almost incidental. It's very much about the survivors and about the humans.
Right.
And there's a wonderful twist moment in it where the title is explained, and it just made me go, whoa. That was cool. So, yes. Highly recommend The Walking Dead. If you haven't read it, there are going to be people out there who haven't, like yourself. So I envy you being able to get into it for the first time.
Nice. That's exciting. All right. My number 1, I'm going to take it before you steal it. I'm going to go with Brian K. Vaughan, Paper Girls. Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chiang, Matt Wilson, Jared K. Fletcher all deserve the credit on this one. And can't just give it to the writer because it is such an ensemble. Like, everybody does their job, right? Cliff Chiang on the art, Matt Wilson on the colors, and the story is a ton of fun. I know Saga is the Brian K. Vaughan image series that gets all of the praise constantly, and not to say that Paper Girls didn't. I mean, they made a TV show out of it, for goodness sake.
Well, part of one. Yeah,
it got canceled. But as far as the book is concerned, it's a time travel story. Gives you the feel of the Goonies and Stranger Things, but it's not derivative. It's very much its own thing. Everything that happens within this story feels like it served a purpose, and kind of like in the way that Back to the Future is one long story, but it takes place in the span of like 2 weeks, give or take, right? These 3 movies. That's what this story is. It's these 4 paper girls who meet on Halloween night or the day after Halloween, delivering their newspapers in their neighborhood, and they come across some shady characters that they may confuse as just leftover trick-or-treaters, right? Because they come across some bullies and then a couple other people dressed as ninjas and a couple other people dressed as white knights, and a couple of them aren't Halloween costumes. Let's just say that. And where that leads them into this time travel caper is fun, it's scary, it's extra dimensional, there's a lot of heart to it. It's a period piece in the fact that these are girls from 1988. That's the year that they're in. So,
like you say, they basically justify setting it in the 80s when a lot of stuff was being set in the 80s. So I think that came out around the time of Stranger Things, and Stranger Things almost leans on the nostalgia of the 80s. Right. There's no real other reason to set it in the 80s, you could argue. But Paper Girls is different. There is a reason for it. But it's the way that the time travel does fit together. So if you do try it, because I'm a nightmare for, I think I mentioned this on something, I'm a nightmare for picking time travel apart and going like, nope, that made a mistake. That's not how it works. You break your own rules, whatever it might be. This doesn't. It's very clever. It pays off as you go through. Some things come full circle. It's one of the most rewarding series I've ever read. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like this is for me the perfect size series. 30 issues. Yeah, this is the compendium version. I know the deluxe editions have a couple more frills. Like the covers of these single issues drew me to them. Like you really do judge a book by its cover, and I couldn't take my eye off of it because these covers were just one solid color.
Yeah.
And they were like movie posters.
Yeah.
It just said Paper Girls, and it had one character on it, and you're like, what are they up to? Like, what is that book about? You just want to find out more of. The one thing I did miss, I remember in the single issues, is that there was good back content, and they had something to decipher the language from the future.
Oh, really?
There was a way to kind of decipher it, and it's the only thing in this one where they don't have that extra. I could be wrong, but I remember that there was a way to decipher it if you had that chart at the back of an issue. Yeah, something like that.
I can't remember if that is in the deluxes or not. It might be. I can't remember. I've got those, but I can't remember. That is such a great choice. I love it. Would have been on my 5. That would have been on my 5 as well, because I love it so much. It's fantastic. Omega Bread says the cipher for the language is in the deluxe editions. Thank you, because I honestly could not
there was
remember.
a
Cipher. Oh, it's nice not switching facial hair this week. My second choice is one that I don't think we've mentioned on this show. I think it came up on Cave of Solitude for very good reason, because the creator was on it. But this is Headlopper. It looks like a 30-something issue series. It's actually just 16 issues. It's so far run from 2015 to 2021, but it's still technically ongoing. But we haven't heard anything of it in a while. But it doesn't matter. Like the way it's chaptered, it almost doesn't matter. So even if you pick this up and we never get volume 5, you're fine. All the stories work well individually. So it's about Norgal, who's kind of a Conan. He's a riff on Conan, basically. But the whole vibe of the series looks a lot more like something like Zelda. Yeah. So I've always kind of seen it as a mix between the two. But the best part of him, because he's all well and good. He doesn't really say an awful lot. But he carries this witch head around with him.
That's right.
She's called Agatha.
That is a great series.
It's a fantastic series.
I read it because he was going to be on the Cave of Solitude that you helped set up, and I read all of those trades, and I was very happy to say that I enjoyed them so much more than I imagined. They were great.
Why do you think you might not? Is it the art style?
You just never know. You never know when you're going to read something that you haven't encountered before, whether it's the artist or the writing, and it is something different. Like it isn't your usual. The artwork is different, but it looks childish somewhat.
Yeah, it's a very toned down style, isn't it? Like it's not hyper detailed. Sometimes the detail is so little that Norgal basically looks like a nose or just a pair of eyes with a beard, you know.
But it's all part of the design.
Yeah, completely.
Everything about it is very deliberate, which you learn to enjoy and come like as you. And each of those books are their own self-contained stories. They don't. It pays off to read it all, but if you happen to read number 2 and you like it, most likely you'll like number one. Like
Yeah.
that's how it feels.
Yeah, you could easily get away with just reading any one of those books on their own.
Yeah.
But well worth picking them all up. The issues were longer than normal, I think. I think they were like
Yes.
double-sized issues, which is why the book seems so thick for just 16 issues. But it's so funny. Like it's laugh out loud funny as well. And you can actually buy a plushie of the head.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
I couldn't at the time for whatever reason, but I really wanted that head. I always want head, but like in this particular situation, I wanted that one head so bad.
I get ya.
It's a fantastic series. It's genuinely one of the most entertaining titles Image have released. It's a bit of a surprise as well because it doesn't. You're looking at it kind of going. Is it like, I think to a degree, I remember looking at it going, "Is that really going to be that good?" It's so good. It's
It really
such
is.
a good series.
All right, my number two. I'm gonna go with something I'm currently reading. It was on my list for compendiums of image compendiums when we did that, and then you said to me, they're actually coming out with something for that particular series, but they're doing it in 2 volumes. So far, I got volume 1 of Birthright. Joshua Williamson, Andre Bresson. I'm really, really enjoying this series. I know Joshua Williamson has become kind of like he stepped into the Jeff Johns role at DC, writing everything and kind of overseeing every series and event. But this series right here, I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I'll break down the synopsis at the back to just do it justice and
Yeah.
not spoil too much. So, for the Rose family, losing their son was the most devastating thing that could have occurred, but it couldn't prepare them from what happened when he returned. Lost to a fantasy land beyond imagination, Mikey Rhodes has returned, a powerful warrior of legend. But not all is what it seems with Mikey, and even the greatest fantasy shatters in the face of reality. I found a lot of my choices tonight have like a theme of the lost and found. I didn't
Oh.
do that on purpose, but it just seems to kind of be the thing. So you got paper girls lost in time,
Mm-hmm.
trying and encountering different versions of themselves. And in this case, you've got this boy who's gone missing. The family is in turmoil over it. I won't get into more detail than that because it's part of the story and the plot. But he returns as basically this looks like a Jason Momoa Conan figure.
Yeah.
Speaking of Conan, right? Comes back very much like that to the point where he's just ready for medieval war. That's what he looks like. He looks like he's been in Lord of the Rings and fighting in Mordor. And in a way, he has. But in what capacity? What's the full story here? Nothing is quite what you think it is. And it becomes a road trip story with him and his older brother. It's got that flashback between what happened to him while he was away, little Mikey, and the family catching up to speed with filling in the blanks of his story.
Right.
All with high fantasy involved in it. It's a ton of fun. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I think I'm into the 4th trade of it now.
Right. Okay. So you're probably nearly about finished with the book, right?
I'm almost just past halfway point
Okay.
in the book. So I'm looking forward to it and hoping that it continues on after issue 25, that it finishes with a bang. So far, the first 3 trades in, I'm all in. Give it a shot, however, which way you want to try. It's really, really fun.
I'm quite envious because I've only read the first 6 issues, but I really, really like them. And it's the first Joshua Williams stuff I've read. Williamson stuff I've read. I haven't really liked his superhero stuff. It's almost a little too fanboyish to me. But I think his strength is probably in his own creator-owned stuff. And those first 6 issues really, really won me over because it is like a cross between Conan and Flight the Navigator, basically, isn't it?
Yeah. And I got to send a special shout out to the art in it. Andre Bresson kills it. Like, it's such a strong part of the story. And because there's the consistency of them being the artists throughout, which is not something you always get in the big 2 comics. And this book, the artwork in it is tremendous.
I'm looking forward to reading it. Again, sorry, I'm just going to stumble through. The Deleuze edition of Birthright. Are you all right, Brad? You having a stroke? What are you doing with the other hand? A real swords and sandals buy from Tonight Picks. Is the next pick the Bible? No, because Image haven't done that yet.
You're number 3.
Speaking of creative teams that stick in with something for the long haul, so far this series has lasted 72 issues. and it's still going. So I don't normally include something I haven't finished, but this is my second choice tonight, technically my third choice tonight, that's unfinished. But I have that much faith in it. It's by Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples. It is Saga. I have the compendium. There will be 2 compendias. How do you do plural compendiums? Compendiums? Compendii.
Yeah. Compendii.
There's 2. I think there'll be 2. I reread the first issue just to remind myself of the vibe, because I don't want to read this properly until Volume 2 comes out, and then I'm going to do a whole, plow through and as quick as I can between doing reading orders for other shit. This is very sweet, very funny, action-packed, drama-filled. It's genuinely funny, but also a little bit on the filth side. So it's perfect for me. It's very adult humor. There's some very graphic moments. So even in the first issue, there's 2 robots doing it. So one of the villains is Prince Robot the Fourth, and you actually see him getting it on with his robotic lady. It's really surreal. It's one of the most surreal, but it's so unapologetically surreal, but it doesn't make you go, what am I looking at here? Because one of the characters is a seal in dungarees, like a baby seal, and it's the cutest thing you've ever seen when Fiona Staples is drawing it. It's just unquestioningly creative and brilliant, but it doesn't lose you, and it could so easily lose you for all the madness that happens in it. But there's always something very human that draws you back into it, and ultimately it's a love story. It is about people from 2 different worlds that are at war, and one of them is the guy is arrested, and I wrote everyone's names down, but I don't know where. But he's arrested, a little horned man, and he ends up on prison on the other planet where he meets, I think she's called Alana, and she's supposed to be guarding him, and then they just run off. And then by the time the 2 sides catch up with him again, she's just given birth, and it's narrated from the perspective of their daughter from the future. So she's kind of looking back and saying, so she might hint at things to come, like, I didn't know it was going to go this way, but at that point that's what they were doing. And you go like, oh, you cheeky little bastards, you're really hooking me with everything now. So I like those little hints of what's to come. Like, it's one of the things I've loved most about long form comics, because it's like you're building to something and you know it, but we're not going to get there yet. But you're going to just give us these little nuggets, little teasy nuggets. Don't tease my nuggets, Brian K. Vaughan. A top 5 most viewed videos on YouTube in the last month are: at number 5, top 10 Ed Brubaker. Number 4, your interview, sir, with Jeff Johns. At number 3, your interview with Jim Shooter.
No way.
At number 2, incoming for April 2025.
Nice.
And at number 1, incoming for March 2025. So people are all about the incomings.
Okay, are we back to the countdown?
We're at your numero through.
All right.
I'd said that like Omega Bread's typing.
This is a series that I've recently finished. For the first time, completed the whole series. I had read a large swath of it, and I never got to the very end. I finally did, and that's Rick Remender's Black Science with Matteo Scalera. 43 issues. I remember the volume 1 when I had picked that up, and just feeling that like these were 2 people really allowing themselves to like stretch their legs and do what they really wanted to do. And I remember Matteo Scalera, I think he referenced like that Frazetta feel, that sort of the way that he drew the landscapes of that first couple scenes in Black Science was very like sci-fi, different dimension. You felt it, and I was all in. And the artwork is, again, something that needs to get a lot of credit in regards to this story, because Rick Remender does what he does. And whether it's Deadly Class, Black Science, 7 to Eternity, or even some of his Marvel stuff, I feel like it's his catharsis. His stories are his sort of catharsis, letting out whatever he might have, whatever baggage he may carry on personally, he puts it into the characters that he writes. And in this case, it's Grant McKay, who is what does he consider himself as? It's like an anarchist scientist, like scientific anarchy, where they're dealing with black science. So they've created this device that allows them to hop interdimensionally to the other version of a world that kind of mirrors their own. But his purpose of doing that is not for any money, not for any sort of celebrity, but to kind of see where they've solved all the problems that our dimension needs to solve. So
Ah,
I'm going to bring back the cure for cancer. I'm going to go here, figure out how to, give everybody clean water. That's his goal. But because he's become obsessed with work and he's got so much childhood trauma and baggage that he carries with him, a lot of he's kind of like a Reed Richards if Reed Richards just let
was a
all
bit
his flaws
broken.
out. Exactly. The way you would imagine Reed Richards to actually be if he was, the
Yeah.
weight that he carries. The Grant McKay is kind of that, and it's just a one thing after another when they're dimension hopping now, and some of the people he's brought with him weren't meant to be along for the ride in their sort of archaeological search for these cures or these solutions. They just encounter problems and are on a run. The artwork is just so wonderful, and it's Remender and Scalera all the way through, right? You got that creative team all the way through. I read it in the compendium format. It does include the covers, as does the Birthright hardcover. That does include the covers as well,
Ah,
thankfully. At the back, unfortunately, they're at the back on Birthright. Anyways,
they're
the Black Science
trying.
one does, and I gotta say that the reason I picked this is because there's a lot of points in that book where the dialogue between the characters, things that they say to each other, they resonated with me at a time when I needed to hear it.
Ah,
That's why the book, I think that's why I'm kind of a sucker for Rick Remender. I'll always give his stuff a chance because I know that he's kind of including some of his therapy sessions into the characters and into the dialogue, which isn't for everybody, but if you're into that sort
but
of
what
thing, and
is?
again, pardon me.
But what is for everybody?
Exactly. Going with the theme of the lost and found, there's a lot of lost and found plots in this story. Lost children, lost parents, lost brothers, whether it's in death or just in another dimension, we got to find each other again. So,
Huh.
Black Science, Rick Remender, Matteo Scalera.
Cool.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
I've only read the first 6 issues. My friend lent me the book. My friend Owen Languistine, lent me um, the first volume, and I really liked it. But I've got the deluxes, but I haven't read them, so that's given me a bit of a push, mate. Thanks for that. Okay, my number 4
Okay.
has been mentioned on the show before. It was in our top 20 for 2023. It did very well. I can't remember if it was my second or third choice, but it wasn't. I don't think it hit the number 1 spot because Kaiju Max was out, and yeah, Kaiju Max beats all. This is 8 Billion Genies. It's an 8-issue miniseries. It's
Thinking about that one.
2022 to 2023. Of course, then the book came out in 23. It's by Charles Soule, Ryan Brown. They're currently working on another series called The Lucky Devils, and because this was just so damn good, I can't wait for The Lucky Devils as well now. It's a story about everyone on Earth getting their wish. Everyone on Earth is granted one wish. And you think, okay, how much story can there be with that? And the wish takes the form of one of these little genies as well, by the way. They're kind of cute and a bit weird, but everyone gets their wish. So some people wish immediately. Some of the humans that get a wish are children. Some are too small to be able to even understand what a wish is, so they don't use it yet. But some of them, like a child might wish for a dinosaur, So some of it might be adults, just go, I just want a big monster truck and loads of money. It can vary, but then you get into some pretty cataclysmic wishes. And when they all combine all at once, it's chaos. And this series could be the biggest mess you have ever read, but it isn't. And I don't honestly know how the hell they work this out, but it's so perfectly assembled to make all of this make sense. And it does it almost like a day 1, day 2, day 3, day 10, day 30, and it starts to move time forward in that way. And you start to see how the impact on the world. And it's funny. It's really, really funny. When it's funny, it's so good. It makes me laugh so damn hard because it's got a slight bit of nastiness to the humor because there's some pretty awful things that happen to people. But it's just, it's relentlessly smart. It's so smart. Like, just the way you're reading it going, that's just so clever. But it's not smug about it. You know, the way some writers are like, I've got a really clever twist. And you go like, it is clever, but you annoyed me with your arrogance. It's so dumb at the same time that it just balances out. For all its ingenuity, it's also so incredibly childish in some ways. So it
That's part of
appeals
its
on
genius.
so many levels. And it's one of the things I like is when I find a series that they cannot make into a TV series. You know, and you go like, this is why comics are great, because you could never make this into a TV series. They're making this into a TV series. I said the same about Saga. They're making that into a TV series as well, apparently. I don't care. This is always going to be superior to me, because like the way that it works and the way that you can kind of jump back and look at a few pages back and go, oh God, that's really how you've done it. There's something different about the way that you read comics. And this really leans heavily into it. This is a comic book. And it earns its place on your shelf by just being one of the best things you'll ever read. And I read it very quickly because I could not put it down.
It's a good one.
One book,
I read it off
done.
of the strength of your review.
Oh, cool.
And I kept that book because it is one where it's like when you get back to reading it, it's going to hit. You got to forget it just a little bit for it to hit one more time. Oh, yeah, that sort of thing. It's a great book. And a very, very interesting premise, like you said, because it is a childish sort of premise where everybody gets a wish and gets what they want. But look at what happens if we really all get what we want.
Yeah.
I think what are the consequences of that? And our childish brain, if I was in charge, if I could do that, I would do this. And it's like, oh, yeah?
Can you imagine everyone's self-righteousness activating all at one moment in time? It would be insanity. There was a question from Omega Bread in the chat as who the art was by. It's by Ryan Brown. He did God Hates Astronauts, written by Charles Soule, who's known for Daredevil. They're also the creative team on...
Curse Words?
Curse Words, yeah. Curse Words I liked. This was just infinitely better. It was just so rewarding as a read, so thank you. Yes,
Soule's a good writer.
Charles Soule's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a good writer.
I did thumbs up. I don't do that. Like it's the 80s. What's that, Glenn? No, you.
I thought his name was Fred.
Glenn. There was a period of time when he was called Raoul because he was trying to dodge tax. But he's called Glenn.
Okay. All right. Getting back to the countdown, my number 4. I'm going to go with a shorter series the way you just did right now. I'm going to copy you. And I'm going to go with... I was going to pick Do a Powerbomb, but this isn't a Hidden Gem episode.
Well, you could have picked Do a Powerbomb. Why didn't you?
I know, but it's not a Hidden Gem episode. I'll save it for one of those ones there. Instead, I'm going to go with another Daniel Warren Johnson series. One that... I don't know if this was on your list, but...
It was nearly on my list.
Yeah. Murder Falcon. Now, there's numerous ways that you can pick up Murder Falcon, whether it's in the soft cover or in the deluxe hardcover that's been recently put out there. I think it came out in 2022, this deluxe hardcover. Well worth it. Well worth it. It's a pretty silly premise, but I'm going to read it. The world is under attack by hideous monsters, and Jake's life is falling apart until he meets Murder Falcon. Murph was sent from the Heavy to destroy all evil, but he can't do it without Jake shredding up a storm. Now with every chord Jake plays on his guitar, the power of metal fuels Murder Falcon into an all-out kung fu fury on those who seek to conquer Earth. It is about fighting monsters with a Murder Falcon who gets his power from heavy metal. It seems ridiculous. It's fantastic.
It is.
It'll make you smile. It'll make you laugh. You'll feel like you're on a roller coaster ride, and you will cry. And there's no spoilers involved.
No.
Check this book out. This is one of the reasons why Daniel Warren Johnson gets a lot of the praise he does. This book pulls off a trick. He finds a way to take these ridiculous, even with power, to do a power bomb. It's the same sort of trick he pulls on you in the sense of, here's a story about this, action-packed, it's meant for me to draw fight scenes, but it's all, the foundation of this is so much heart in his stories. And this one, it really hits home. It's great.
It is fantastic. I was going to say, like, if you do like kaiju, metal, and just insanity, you'll love it. But I don't think it matters if you don't love it, even one of those things or none of those things. Something about this altogether just works so damn well.
Check it. Even if you don't like comic books, if you want to read a good comic book that packs a punch, packs a punch for real, and I mean that in all seriousness. It's so good.
Well, I think people are sold, dude. Marvel Man said that sounds so good. Scrubs said it sounds intriguing, and Omega Bread says, "Wow, that sounds like everything I've ever wanted in one book." Joe, it surprised me, especially as I wasn't a fan of his previous series, but I loved Wonder Woman: Dead Earth. But even after the expectation that came from that, it just surpassed it. I'm gonna hit my last one, dude, and
Okay.
it's not going to be a surprise. And I have mentioned it on the show before. And
Please do.
don't know if it was twice, so apologies if this is the third time. But hey, if you haven't read this series yet, then read it. This is Revival. These are the deluxe editions. This is an incredible, what they call a rural noir. It's written by Tim Seeley, who I'm a huge fan of. The art is by Mike Norton, who has a kind of a Paul Pelletier vibe, mixed with a little bit of Alan Davis. So it's like a much more simplified version almost of Paul Pelletier.
1 second, Dave. 1 second. I just need to stretch. 1 second. I've got my copy.
Ah!
I have the compendium. It's next on the reading
I like
list.
that spine.
Yeah, I've been waiting to read this based off of all the praise you've been giving it. Continue.
Cool. I'm really glad you got it, and I really hope you like it. One of the great things about this as well, and you know what, Robert Kirkman, they include the covers as chapter breaks in these. Yeah.
You don't say.
Yeah. Yeah, you do say. What's that you said about Robert Kirkman, Glenn? I think we get sued for that, Glenn. We can't.
That's libel.
We can't say that. I think Omega Bread would be embarrassed to hear those words.
Oh, gee.
Glenn.
Easy, Glenn.
Oh, take it easy, Glenneth. He's a lippy little trickster. So it's a crime noir. It's set in a rural town where the recently deceased, for, I don't know, of like the last year, come back to life. They come back from the grave. And when they come back, and I've said it much the same way in previous episodes, they bring their secrets with them. One of them is our main protagonist's sister. I forgot her name, and they haven't put it on the back of the book. I'm terrible with character names, all right? Unless they're called something like Cyclops, or they look like their powers. I can't remember people's names. You're going to say, aren't you?
Dana Cypress?
Yeah, perfect. Dana Cypress. It's been a while since I've read it.
Read the book. I come through.
You do. I've read it twice, but I haven't read it in a while. But I think when I finished it, I read it again immediately because I loved it so much. It's 47 issues, I think, but 45 of the covers are by Jenny Frisson. They're beautiful covers. They're stunning covers. They're so nice, man. They're pretty. They're a little disturbing, but you can't not look at them. I love the way she does it on the deluxe as well, because like you see the front of the character and then you see the back, and each one kind of reveals a little bit about the character and their motivations on the she's protecting her son.
Interesting.
Yeah, I won't. One of them kind of spoils things, so I'm not going to show that one. Not only are they lovely books, but the way that Tim Seeley plays it is he just constantly hits you with cliffhangers, and this is why this works as a monthly title. But also, thank God it's collected in something that's a trade, like a compendium or these, because I couldn't wait. I can't imagine waiting a month for the next part. The cliffhangers are so strong. They're so strong. I've been late for work so that I could finish reading. I remember when I finished the first hardcover, I was an issue away from the end, and I ordered the next book straight away because I had to have it. I couldn't wait. It's genuinely a really exciting book. You feel really excited reading the book. You don't know what's going to happen. Tons of surprises. The one thing I will say about it is the payoff, the ending, or the reveal as to why this has all happened. You'll either love it or you might not. I didn't like it when I first read it. I didn't like the reveal, but it didn't matter because it almost wasn't about that by the end of it. It's about all the other stuff that happens. So it's almost just it's like a device. When I read it the second time, I liked the cliffhanger. I liked the reason. Just fine, thanks. You know, I wasn't. I think it was because there was such build up. Like, how can you possibly what's it gonna be? Oh, okay, but I don't care. The fact that it's still my number one series from Image, genuinely, and is probably my second favorite comic series of all time. Oh no, Preacher. Oh, that's tough. Maybe 3. Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm
It's
gonna
top
tell
3.
Xander Cannon on you.
No, he's number 1 still. He's number 1. Kaiju Max is 1. Revival might be 3, and I'd say Preacher is number 2. So the fact that it's that high, and that actually also means it beats Peter David's Hulk run, is probably saying quite a lot.
You've read a lot of comics, so
Couple.
that does say a lot.
1 or 2.
I can't wait to read
mate.
it. My fifth pick is very much in the same vein of your fifth pick, in the sense that as soon as I got to the end of one deluxe edition or one end story arc, I needed to get the next.
I've already
story.
filled it in.
I had to keep it hard. You already filled it in?
I've already written down what it is, yeah.
Invincible is my fifth pick. Robert Kirkman. Ryan Otley does the majority of the artwork, but it's Cory Walker and Robert Kirkman who were the original creative team. I think Ryan Otley gets onto the book around the second or third trade, somewhere around there. And then he sticks with the book almost the whole way through every issue. And everything about this book gets better and better and better the further you go into the series. I could do a top 10 fight scenes, just picking fight scenes from this book. It's the best superhero book I've ever read. I'll put it that way. I don't know if you've seen the television show on Amazon at all. It does the series justice. Nothing is as good as the comic, but it really does the series justice in the sense that everything that the book makes you feel makes you go, oh. They don't back in the animated series. So you could give that a shot to see if it's up your alley. But man, is this a great comic book.
It really is. It really, really is. Although we haven't discussed it in a while, but I remember saying that I gave up around about issue 16, I think, or something like that. 16, 20. Yeah. But you said you got to stick with it. And I did. And I'm so glad I did. And when it picked up, another relentless series, another series that won't let you put the damn book down.
Yeah, it's an investment. There's 3 compendiums. But I'll tell you, there's a bunch of things on my shelf that I would get rid of quickly to make sure I kept those comics. Then there isn't many books that I feel that way about, but it's just that good. The art gets that much better. It's got all the elements that we appreciate about superhero comics, whether you like the street level grounded characters, the cosmic stuff, the Superman, the Captain America, the Shield aspect. It's all there.
Yeah, and of course it's got its own versions of like the Justice League and some of those other characters, but it plays into the time travel elements. Everything you see in a superhero book is here, but he plays with it in a way that it's not been played with before.
Yeah, and because there's no, it's kind of like, I'm gonna make a wrestling reference because that's what I like to do, but it's like watching Monday Night Raw or SmackDown on Netflix now, where there isn't a television time limit and commercial break that you've got to stick to. Now Robert Kirkman had whatever time he wanted to tell these stories. It was when I'm ready to be finished, I'll be finished. And when it's done, you feel like, that was worth, I think it was like 140 something issues.
Yeah, I think 147, 148, something like that, wasn't it?
Something like that. I think 12 hardcovers, maybe more.
Don't know. 3 compendiums. That's what I've got. So
3 compendiums.
Yeah.
48 issues each, something like that.
Yeah.
Fight scenes galore. You got the cosmic elements galore. The time travel stuff is done so well. He doesn't have one villain that you feel is the villain, because everybody.
No, that's true. Not really.
No, it's like any one of those villains could be like, oh, this guy's back, and it's been this the whole time. It kind of feels like that.
Every time I thought of one, I would think of another one just then. So proving your point. There are spin-off titles as well, but you can just read the 3 compendiums and be perfectly happy and never know the other titles exist. But if you do want to know how the other titles like Brit, Guardians of the Globe, Invincible Universe, and all these other books, Atom Eve's miniseries, if you want to know how they all fit in between the issues of Invincible, including his guest appearances as well in other Image books, there is an Invincible reading order on the Omniverse Comics.guide website. It is the most comprehensive Invincible reading order you will ever see. The only thing that's not in it at the minute is the Battle Beast stuff, because it's a brand new series, so that's not been incorporated yet, but I'm going to have to go back and see how it all fits in. Otherwise, you are good to go. And again, it will tell you what you can read, what you can skip.
second to none.
Blah.
And I'm happy that I was able to mention a image reading order that we've got, which is extensive, like you said, comprehensive as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would love to do episodes just about this series because there's so much you can unravel and talk about, and places you can go as far as themes that we talk about on this show. Cosmic stories, like I said, fight scenes, love interests. It's all there. Deaths, right? Things that make shock
brutal
value.
deaths.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it doesn't feel cheap, even when it's really, really brutal and it's shocking. It doesn't feel like a cheap move.
I think I included in our first top 10 fight scenes, I included the one with the Viltrumite and the Battle Beast that takes place like throughout a couple of issues when they go back, when they change scenes, they go back to their fight scene. No words, just them beating the shit out of each other. And the consequence, like there's an actual consequence to it. Like that's the thing about creator-owned comics. Again, the beauty of it, and sometimes the part that leaves you unsettled is like, oh, I really like that character. Right? Don't hurt them. And depending on the series, like in a superhero series, there's ways to explain yourself out of a problem, right? Which is why you keep reading. Like, what clever way are they gonna?
You can basically bring anyone back because they're an IP. Invincible is the IP as a series, so he can do whatever he wants with it, and he does.
And he does. Yeah. Check it out if you haven't. If you have, you know what I'm talking about. If you've read, like Dave said, the first 16 issues or so, stick with it. Well, I think that is a great list of 10 comics, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, flawless list.
I think if you pick up any one of those books, you'll most likely have a good comic in your hands. I don't always feel that way with some of my own picks. I'm like, I don't know if everyone's going to love that. I know I like it, but in this case, these are really good comics.
That they
Top
are.
to bottom.
Top to bottom.
Dave, as always, a pleasure. Everybody that's been hanging with us on the Twitch, we thank you so much for joining us and listening to us on your podcast platforms, whether you're at work or in your car or walking your dog or doing the dishes, or if you're watching us on YouTube. We appreciate all of your support. Hit that subscribe button with a thumbs up.
Or you're using a witch head in a really interesting way.
Like Omega Bread has been this entire episode.
There's a mental picture to finish this off.
And of course, don't forget, like Dave mentioned just before, omniversecomics.guide for all of our podcast archives, interviews, collector item specials, and our reading orders that are second to none.
No.
Anything left to say? Anything, Dave, before we leave?
Yes, just the promise that Shadowhawk will be featured in a future episode, no doubt. Kidding.
And any last words from Glenn?
None that I can repeat.
Glenn, go wash your mouth out with soap. Dave, as always, a pleasure.